James Nachtwey is one of the greatest photographers of our time. For almost 4 decades he has been documenting poverty, famine, disease and conflicts. He decided to become a war photographer after watching the images from Vietnam taken by reporters such as Don McCullin. He presents himself as an anti-war photographer and still believes in the power of images to prevent conflict. He is the recipient of the Princess of Asturias Award for Communication and Humanities.
I use the Mark III. Why do you do this job, especially the war part? You know that the British photographer Don McCullin says that you can only be a war photographer in the long term if you have a purpose. Which is your purpose?
Yeah. Because people have to know what's going on in the world. And when there's a war, there's so much at stake for the people involved in the war and for the rest of the world. Photographs can get behind the political rhetoric that is always surrounding a war, that creates a kind of justification for the people who are conducting the war. And photographers are on the ground. They're seeing what's happening to individual human beings and showing the effect of the war, and they're holding accountable the decision makers and policy makers who are conducting the war. And this is a way in which public opinion can be brought to bear to pressure change.
Do you think that a picture can be an antidote to war?
Yes, I think that in a way a picture that shows the true face of war is an anti-war photograph. It would, in my experience in seeing what war does to people and societies, it would be very difficult to promote that. And so I think that photographs that show the true face of war, in a way, are mediating against using war as a means of conducting policy. I think there are things worth fighting for in this life, and I think that people have to defend themselves. But I think we should also be aware where war leads. What are the inevitable consequences of war in human terms? And we must never forget it, and we must think deeply upon it before ever committing people to fight a war.
You have covered dozens of wars. Is there particularly one that has marked you more than the others?
When someone is suffering, when someone has been victimized, it's hard to say one is more important than the other. I think they're all equally important. Having said that, the genocide in Rwanda was something that was so extreme and so unusual. It was very hard to actually understand in my mind how it could be that 800,000 to 1 million people were slaughtered by their countrymen in 3 months, using farm implements as weapons. There's a moment that comes when someone is raising a machete or an axe above the head of an innocent person. What allows them to bring that weapon down upon their neighbor? I actually can't understand that.
Most of your work is done in black and white. But I mean, if your purpose is to portray reality, in fact, reality is not shaped in black and white. It's shaped in color.
Yes.
So why the black and white?
That's right. Black and white is not real, and it's abstract. But what it does do is that I think it distills the essence of what's actually happening, because color itself is such a strong phenomenon in a physical sense that in a way it competes with what is happening in the picture, and it tries to become the subject of the picture. So to abstract it into black and white distills the essence of what's happening without competing with color.
What makes the difference between a good image and an iconic image? I mean, what are iconic images made of?
I think there has to be some very strong, genuine, deeply human emotion expressed in the picture. It has to be a situation which is historically significant. And, you know, the journalism 101, you have to be in the right place at the right time, which sounds kind of simple, but actually it's extremely difficult, as you know. And I think it has to be the condition of public awareness of a certain event has to reach a certain point before a picture can become iconic. For example, the picture of the young boy Alan Kurdi, who was drowned off the coast of Turkey. It came at a moment when the world was aware enough of that situation where it galvanized public opinion. The picture of Nick Ut, of the young girl who was, you know, running from the napalm
in Vietnam.
In the Vietnam War. It happened at a time when there was, you know, enough awareness of the war and enough protest against the war that picture again galvanized public opinion.
Speaking about that, hard impact images and mass media. You know surely firsthand that publishers and editors are quite often reluctant to publish this kind of images. You mentioned the Aylan Kurdi. Example is a very good one. And the most used argument is that by publishing these images, we are some kind undermining the dignity of the victims. Does it make any sense to you?
People suffer does not mean they don't have dignity. If people are afraid, it does not mean they lack courage. If people are enduring difficult circumstances, it doesn't mean they don't have hope. That pictures don't undermine dignity necessarily. I didn't think the picture of Alan Kurdi undermined his dignity. I think it caused a great deal of sympathy for the young boy and for his family and for all of the immigrants. And if it had been a picture that was not dignified in some way, that didn't recognize the sacrifice that had been made, then the picture wouldn't have had effect.
Well, James Nachtwey, thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you, and take care.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.